think you just saw why we're successful, right? I was at that conclave where those awards were announced, and I wish all of you could have been there. The opportunity to sit and listen to Kansas State University announced time after time was pretty thrilling. It painted a picture, I think, of the success we've had over these 10 years. We all know success doesn't come on an even basis, but we've kept on the program. We've had excellent leadership at key points. And as I watched those awards being given, it was also thrilling to know that Brett Aiken was announced as the outstanding undergraduate in the nation. And Gary Haig, who's to a lot of us is Mr. Acacia, whose Acacia motor never stops, was announced as the recipient of the Award of Merit, which I think was long overdue as well. So of course the capstone was the Superior Chapter Award. And Gary and I had some conversations about that because we could have been a Malcolm Award winner, and I honestly believe that the people were telling us the truth from behind the scenes when they said it was really just a flip of a coin that made a difference. And they said, your guys are there. And I can tell you from being involved in the National Fraternity Foundation that Kansas State continues to come up as the model of saying, we've got to figure out how we can do things like Kansas State. So Chris is absolutely right. Now you're sitting there saying, well, Bill, you know, we know about these, and you're talking about those, you're supposed to talk about Dr. Bosco. Well, as Chris alluded to, I think that those awards are part of what we're seeing came from Dr. Bosco. You're going to read the bio stuff about Pat and material that Lucas has, of course, done a wonderful job of providing. My job is to share a bit with you about the relationship of Pat in this chapter, going back to the darkest days of this fraternity. Days when Acacia was challenged to identify what its core values really were. A time that was pretty significant to all of us. I think and now we know, of course, of the success that we're talking about. We don't have a victory yet, but we have a lot of success. Victory's out there somewhere. This is success. And a lot of you probably heard the quote about, it goes something like, success has 100 fathers, failure is an orphan. You haven't heard that? I used to tell my staff, you can always tell we have a really great idea going, because everybody remembers when they suggested that we should do it. But when we have a bad idea going, it's obvious because nobody can remember who in the heck came up with that stupid idea. Well, a lot of people, they're probably here in this room and at home, that are saying, I think I was part of making this success what it is. And they're probably right, because nothing like this happens without a lot of people doing a lot to make a lot of good things happen. So they're probably right, but as often the case, a few people have a unique and rather special impact on success. And we'll see those things happen and we recognize them, but sometimes we fail to realize how important it is that the timing and the right people at the right time can make a difference. You know, Acacia has had in nearly 100 years a very highly respected image and reputation on this campus. I know a couple of guys in the room can beat me on this comment, but it's pretty scary to me to know I've known this fraternity for half that period of time. This reputation was damaged in a very short but critical time, about a decade ago. Very short period in the whole history of the fraternity, but a critical time. It was a time that some people say we should forget, but I think we have to remember because it was a wake-up call for this fraternity. It was a time that challenged us to see if we really thought we would be more than a place to eat, sleep, and play. There's more to Acacia than that. It asked us to think about whether or not those words we say to prepare ourselves as educated men, take more active part, yada, yada, you all know that, right? When you say them, think about them, because those do respect and refer to our core values. So it called, at that time, Acacia was called to consider just what we're really about. Now it's instructive to point out for those of you that weren't around, and most of you weren't, I think there were 2 or 3 in the room that were actually here on campus at that point, or close to it, that didn't happen because Acacia made one mistake. There wasn't one event that drove all that. What happened was Acacia lost its respect for the university, for the community, for itself as a fraternity, and I think some people lost their way, they lost their values, they lost their sense of purpose, what they were here for. They were branding. Chris mentioned, or someone mentioned branding. They were branding Acacia at that point. They really branded it. They branded it so severely that the editor of the Manhattan Mercury wrote a special editorial about the bad attitude and lack of responsibility in the Acacia fraternity. How would you guys like to get up and read that in the community paper, given the way you're conducting yourselves today? Major blow to all of our sense of what this organization is about. I think that if you think about that climate, and then you think about, there's Dr. Pat Bosco. He's the Dean of Students. He's got 20,000 students, many of whom are on a mass break for freedom from home. He has plenty of things to think about, plenty of things to do, and he has a fraternity that just embarrassed themselves and the university, frankly. This was a documented attitude. This wasn't just a public opinion. This was documented with an IFC ruling that said, Acacia, you're gone for 5 years. You don't belong on this campus. So our status was pretty clear. Now, Pat, in his position, had plenty of reasons to say, Acacia, come back in 5 years. We'll sit down and talk about it. You guys earned this ruling. You think about it. You got 5 years to work over how you want to respond. But really, what Pat did was he encouraged us to rethink what Acacia was worth on this campus and why Acacia should be on this campus, and to think about why Acacia could provide value to the campus and, more importantly, of course, to the young men involved in it. He met with us numerous times. He asked us and shared in conversation with us to talk about what should fraternity look like and act like if it's really going to promote the values that it says it has in its core values. If we wanted to raise young men who are going to be active community leaders, what would we do as a fraternity? And a lot of us say, well, gee, what would a fraternity that really focused on education and scholarship really look like? And that was the conversation that Pat opened the door for us to have with campus leaders. We had focus groups. Beth Unger, other faculty members met with small groups. We met with campus leaders, many of whom were non-Greek, and we said, what do you think a fraternity should do on this campus to be really relevant to students that plan on being out of college someday, don't think this is the end of life as they know it? We had some great input and some great time spent, but all that happened because the doors opened for us to have those conversations. Pat then publicly endorsed, in that climate of a non-supportive campus, people that weren't around then don't quite get it, what that was really like, including a lot of alumni who were out there somewhere that thought Acacia had been harmed unfairly. You really earned your reputation in most cases, guys, so we had earned that. Right or wrong, we're not going to go there with that. But Pat endorsed the Acacia vision that was crafted by a task force that was led by brothers Bassett and Haig, and spent numerous days sitting around in discussion about, do we want to put the effort into starting this fraternity over? It wasn't done frivolously, and it wasn't a whim, and it wasn't done out of just an emotional attachment to the fraternity. It was done from a serious discussion about what are the basic reasons we really have a value in our fraternity system that we can perpetuate.